started to bring people, as I think others did, to the work, just as a place for it was a very silent space, and you had these dates that you could kind of reflect on, and the word mute, comma, as a question mark, and it was beautifully forgotten and overgrown. If we go to the kind of next image, and I started to take people on these tours of the city that would end with the work, and the tours of the city were about these moments of kind of temporary intervention, moments of resistance, moments of rebellion, moments of kind of critical artwork that can ask difficult questions of public places. And we used these very kind of augmented reality, low tech. We used these bakelite side views to look at images of the work as it might have been. So if you go to the next image, and the next image, and the next one. And you know, this is a list, and these works included kind of critical artworks, but also really important kind of gestures. This one, many people have declared as Glasgow's greatest public artwork, which is the renaming of Nelson Mandela Place, which is a lovely story in itself. So it was kind of keeping the naming of Nelson Mandela Place.
Was on the name of something else?
No. This is so this it was renamed to kind of support the campaign for the release of Nelson Mandela, and it was a fantastic idea of, you know, what could Glasgow City Council do against a kind of apartheid regime. Well, you can rename one of your streets so that every letter that goes to the South African Embassy, which is in the street, carries the name Nelson Mandela. An absolutely inspired work. So there are things.
They just moved to the embassy to somewhere else.
I know, but there's a kind of point, and I suppose it's kind of part of the reason I suppose we're here tonight is I decided to become a wee bit tired with cultural osmosis, on this over-reliance on our memories to say, you know, these things are important, but we'll pass them on in an oral tradition. I thought we have to sometimes work a wee bit harder to keep things alive and to revisit them. So you go to the next. And this was a really lovely night. This is a group of kind of graduates and students I took down, and we finished at Douglas's work. And it's always interesting when people are confronted with these dates and kind of asked to kind of what the dates are. And there's a guy here in front. Where is he? I think it's the gentleman with the beard here, who, when he looked at the date 1922, declared, that's John McLean. That's when John McLean was tried for sedition in the docks. And he had memorised the first 8 lines of John McLean's speech to the docks. And it was a really fantastic moment. If you go to the next slide, John McLean's desk, I'll throw it in there. The fact that he was wrong, actually, and it was not 1922, you can read this, say I leave who I was doing it, was, by the way, you know, it was close enough. And there
he was up in charge 7 times.
Yeah.
And he was in charge of 22.
Yeah, it wasn't a speech from the docks though. We're going to have arguments about dates tonight. So, there you go. And then if you go to the next image. And there, you know, apologies, it's not, I suppose, maybe that's catching the image a wee bit. And that's the wall as we came across it. So sometime in early March, the wind blew the word mute down and the wall that said mute. So the corner, as you've seen it, that said mute, comma, and then the 6th day, 6 dates, was knocked down. So all of a sudden, you've got this strange phenomenon, you've got this slightly wobbly wall, with these 6 dates now exposed to everybody going to and from the West Bar. And it's a really interesting moment, you know, because actually it works very well in the context of the work. And I begin to think about the fact that the work has been unmuted and that it's now opened. So we're kind of confronted with this phenomenon. If you go to the kind of next image, and again, maybe the next image. Can't really see it there. And maybe the next image. You know, Douglas who made the work, was taught in a course where the adage was the context is half the work. And I kind of started thinking about the fact that the work is the context, so half the work has become the work, and it's a new state for the work. So we're left with this kind of question about what do we do with this work now? And as I discussed this with other people, said, should we keep the one wall that remains? Should we rebuild the wall that's fallen down? Do we kind of take it all away and put it into a museum somewhere? What do we do with this? While we kind of prevaricated, Network Rail came and knocked the wall down. So if you go to the next, and the next. And this was kind of one of the things that kind of working with Ray Mackenzie here about this question about, what are we going to do about this? This is something that we need to engage with. Ray dug out this lovely bit of serendipity exactly at the same time. There was this kind of invitation to come to this event where there was a series of works about Brigton being discussed, including this text, learn from the past, use the future well, which says at the bottom here, these words were in the wall of a Brigton working men's club before it was demolished to make way for flats. And this was happening exactly the same time. We thought there's something in the air here. Of course, a bit too slow off the mark, and this is kind of the last image that I have of the wall, which is in fact the only trace that there was to be found. Really unbelievably quickly, the wall was knocked down, which even if you were only interested in the fact that it was the Glasgow Green facade and not interested in the artwork on the back of the tunnel, should have been a listed monument. But it was knocked into pieces, disappeared, and invisible on the site within a few days of it having come down. So that would be my kind of very quick chronology of the work. And I suppose it's great that Johnny's pulled this together tonight. And in our own ad hoc, informal way, we're kind of raising the spectre of the work again. And maybe in a strange kind of paradox, it's more alive now than it's ever been. So that's me.